Hello, Ken.
Hello, Tom. How are you tonight?
I am good. How are you?
Great. You know that countdown always just gets me so excited.
It really does. It really does. So we're all ready for the weekend then,
We are.
and we got a good show tonight.
I think so. It's been a darn busy week. Lots of stuff coming together for our spring activities, and the weather's been nice. Gosh, what more
I
could
know.
you ask for?
I think my ice dams are finally melting away. Um, so I
I'm
think
hoping
I think
so.
we can get started here, and we'll check in on who's here. I think everybody, if you say hello, I'll see you in the chat. And we got Dan Linfors, welcome. Mr. Narrow Gauge himself. Roy Eltham is here from San Diego. Roy's bringing the heat. We got George Sinos here from Nebraska, I heard. Is that right, Ken?
Yep.
Yeah, Roger Coleman. Humanity Junction Heath is in the house. Hope you're feeling better. Tim Hamilton is here. And our favorite assistant superintendent, Ken Randy Relander, is here
Good.
with his bridge. He's probably working on his bridge as we're talking here. I know.
Sure.
He's building a bridge with a layout around it, I've heard. So, and 72, Roy's rubbing it in. It was 72 in San Diego. I think we were 27, so it's just kind of
Just about the same.
about the same. Jeff Sane is here. Chris Robin, Fire Guy 10,000. I think that's Tom Tennyson. And we got Daniel Banks, Chris Bell, Wiggy Waggy is here. Mr. Steven, former cheesehead himself. Dwight at Northern Star is here, just popped in. Hello. Matt is here. Have a good evening. Anyone I miss? Oh, there he is. Mr. John Whithouse is here. Hello, John. Good evening. We're gathering a crowd now. They must have heard about the free donuts and beer or something like that. So
I think they're coming here for John and Aaron.
I know they're not here for you and I.
No.
I've heard that many a Fridays that we are not it. So
Yeah, I'm just only disappointed that John's number one fan, and we won't mention her name because I think she's under 18. I don't know if they told her that John would be on, because she'd be on for sure.
yeah, she'd be on and kicking his chair out from under him, I heard. So,
Right.
So, well, why don't you go over what we got coming up? We have the Modelers Retreat.
We do, and there's 10 fantastic presentations, and I guess I'd highlight a few, but I don't know which one I would not highlight. But 10 great presentations. We are going to have a station available so that you can get help on achievement or model contest paperwork, because we're hoping that everybody that brings models to the retreat will then bring them back to the convention and show us what a couple more months of work has done for them. So that's going to be exciting. The Modelers Retreat will also have, there's at the convention, there's going to be a little contest for scratch built billboards. And I think building the billboard is going to be one thing, but getting the creative graphics on it, that's going to be the part that's going to be a lot of fun. So 2 great days of fun, $15, and that'll get you in, plenty of free parking. And so that's what the modelers meet looks like, Tom.
That's pretty good. It's always a good time. Friday night's a wonderful social. If you have slides, if you have some video or something to show, bring them.
Yep.
Set up a computer and you can show all the slides you want of every Milwaukee Road MP15 that you ever saw in your life.
Or Milwaukee Road GG1.
Milwaukee Road GG1s would be really good. I'd like to see all of those. And I saw Mike Ostertag is here, our friend from the Second Section podcast, which is of course our second favorite podcast, right after Around the Layout. So, but welcome, Mike. And Colin King snuck in. Hello, Colin. Welcome. Colin Sullivan is here too. It's Colin night.
It is. And Colin has confirmed that he will be at the modelers meet. If you remember that amazing N-scale grand station that he brought last year, it'll be a year more mature. So I'm excited to see that.
It's highlighted in our videos.
It is,
was
yes.
so impressive.
Yep.
It was so impressive. It needs a North Coast Limited pulling in there, and it's what it just would really do great. So, and then we got coming up. We have the operators retreat. You want to chat about that, Ken?
I will. 4 great layouts. We're looking for 21 operators, and we'd like to invite people that have never operated or really hardly operated at all, and really are looking for a connection into the operation scene in the Twin Cities, because this is going to be a tremendous opportunity to come where there's a layout host and other helpful people there to help you get your feet wet in operations. Operations is another fun part of the hobby that we enjoy in the Twin Cities area. Another great way to get your no Vikings and no Packers. The operations retreat's a great way to get into operations. No problems at all. So please sign up, and we appreciate that we could end up with many more than 21 people that want to join. And if that's the case, we have layouts on standby to welcome you to come and join us. So look for the sign up next week and send us an email. We want who you are, how to contact you. We'd like you to tell us a little bit about your operating experience. Give us your bank account, routing numbers, and passwords, and you're in. Oh, wait a minute. No, not the last part.
Huh? Oh, we got rid of that. So
yeah, okay.
Going back, Randy mentioned the modelers retreat. Bring your stuff and get or share a table. If you only have 2 things, we'll share a table.
Yep.
You know? And we put your name there. We put a nice do not touch on there. And we have tasers in case like Mike Ostertag's walking around, you can let him have it. And, you know, we really, 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 it's tough to say this because people don't understand. We really want to see your unfinished projects, if that makes any sense.
It does,
you know, we want to see stuff in progress. You will get a lot more discussion about things that are in progress.
Yes.
You know, that depot, Mike Ostertag's S-scale models. You know, some of the things that these other people are doing is just amazing. So, and Heath, that's not the operators retreat we're having, but if you show up, that's the one you'll be getting. So, unless you bring a GG1 to run on the split rock, we can do that. So. And see, Heath is it. He only has unfinished projects. So, and unstarted projects. I don't know if you want to bring the boxes, but you never know. You can do that. And so then I think we have one more thing coming up. Wouldn't that be a convention?
That would be, yes, the TLR annual convention. Registrations are coming in. And there's one of the exciting things is we've a couple of our first registrations have come in from Australia. So the Twin Thousand Lake Region Convention is going to be an international thing. We are setting up a special Zoom meeting with Gordy Robinson, and I don't know if we're going to call it cocktails with the chairman or lunch with the big shot. Who knows what we'll call it?
Questions with a kilt.
Ooh! If he shows up with a kilt, we'll just have the camera up high enough so that if he wears a kilt, we don't care.
That's right.
So again, 3 full days of layout tours, clinics, the Modeler's Nook, which is going to be a spot where you can do hands-on modeling, great displays, the celebration room where you can have your models evaluated. You can have them judged for the contest or just evaluated for the achievement awards. But it's going to be tremendous. 3 full days, lots of fun, lots of camaraderie, and only $35.
Yeah.
There is a banquet that's what, $33, $35 also, which will be a great banquet. But gosh, you can have all the fun you want. The room nights are only $109, which is really a great price for right across the street from the Mall of America. So look at it this way: you can model railroad till 10, 11 o'clock at night. Then you go across to all the big time bars and restaurants at the Mall of America, and you party into the night into 2 o'clock. Then get up right away in the morning and be model railroading. More fun.
Yep.
And
the most fun you can have for $35.
Yep.
Without getting arrested, I think so.
Exactly. Yep. Then we're going to put together a volunteer sign-up sheet. But the first thing that we want to do, and we're going to try to get that done Monday night at the TCD board meeting, is put together a volunteer chair. And this is something we've not been doing well enough in the division. We need to put positions in place so that when you volunteer, anybody volunteers, and everybody does, we can document it and get you volunteer points so that if someday you want to go for that volunteer achievement award, we're helping you get there. So there sure will be. Drop me a note anytime.
Yeah, you can get a hold of us. We're always looking for people to volunteer.
Sure.
We will find some place that you will be necessary, needed, and appreciated. So
yeah.
I think that just about covers all our ambitious plans.
Yes.
For now. We got a meeting coming up, and we just had a Zoom meeting, TCD. We meet via Zoom every once in a while. We had What's on Your Workbench. We had a good show there. And I think is it time for our guests?
Boy, I know that the audience has been standing by, and if we don't get out of the way and get those guys on pretty quick, they're going to be throwing stuff at the screen.
They will. So
Cowboy fans.
So who we got these guys from? I saw their cohort. The Kingpin, is that what they called him? The henchman, the Kingpin from inside a boiler of a steam engine was saying hello. I saw Mr. AJ.
Yeah.
And don't ever ask what AJ stands for, otherwise you'll be in trouble. The Minnesota FreeMo will haul you out back, and you'll never be seen again. But so we have John Zacharias, right?
Right.
And then we got Aaron Cohen.
Exactly right.
All right. Hello, gentlemen.
Hey guys.
Go ahead, Ken. Have Adam first, and then we'll.
As they popped up, I was thinking of the old Smith Brothers cough drops. You guys are too young to remember those guys.
I'm too young.
Yeah.
I'm guessing they had beards.
They did. So tonight we're lucky enough to have two members of the Minnesota FreeMo group join us, and there's a whole bunch of great reasons why. One is FreeMo is an important way for people to not only get into the model railroading hobby, but to to grow. There you go. You don't have to have a big basement to be part of a big layout. You can put together a 4-foot module, and as you'll see later in the slides, be part of a huge operation. And then, and I think, well, we'll let them tell the story because it's really an exciting story to tell. They're going to be a big part of our modelers retreat and the convention. So let's have that. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves and talk just a little bit about Minnesota HO FreeMo?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Aaron. I'm John. Yeah, like Ken said, the FreeMo is a really nice way to kind of get into the hobby or to learn new skills in the hobby. You don't have to have a ton of space or even a whole concept for a layout. A lot of people just kind of get stuck in trying to figure out what they want to do. FreeMo can be a really great way to figure out what you want to do. My first module that I put together, I just wanted to know how does scenery work. And it's so much easier to just do it than to have somebody explain it to you. And a FreeMo module lets you do that in something that you can actually do start to finish in a reasonable time at a reasonable cost. It's an incredibly flexible system. The only thing that really matters is that it comes to the FreeMo end plates and kind of meets the basic guidelines for how they hook to each other. And other than that, everything in between those end plates, The only limit is your creativity. They just had a enormous setup down in Oklahoma. They had everything from gigantic passenger depots to huge bridges to cities to country, anything that you could possibly imagine. Yep. So really nice way to just be able to kind of do something new. Anything you want to add to that?
Ken just posted on there that there is actually two groups in Minnesota. There's the N Scale and HO. N Scale's lucky; they got their own permanent space or semi-permanent space where they're set up year round in I think it's Victoria. Pretty nice setup. Otherwise you see them at the shows once in a while. So.
And the basic concept's the same. You build your module, you bring it out, you set it up with the other guys. The standards are there to make sure that any two modules can be connected. You can make any layout design you want. It's a very flexible system. And if you're out at the Modelers Retreat, we'll have a layout out there so you can kind of see how the whole thing goes together. Very, very easy way to get into the hobby, to start doing something new, to meet some new folks, go some interesting places. I know we've got a slideshow where there's some pictures of our setup in Duluth. I mean, half the fun of that is just going and hanging out in the big depot at Duluth and running trains inside of the train depot. That's great.
And Duluth really treats us well. I mean, they take care of food, beverages, and we pretty much get to go in the off-limits areas of for being an exhibitor there. We get to ride the train for free. I mean, they really take care of us up there.
It's the kind of unique thing about Fremo is that Fremo is kind of model railroading out in the world. You're almost always going somewhere to do these setups.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's going to be a more private thing like the Oklahoma setup was, where it's just in a building with nothing but other railroad people. But even then, you're meeting railroad people from far away, folks you have to talk to, really seeing work from a wide variety of folks. At the other end are the depot shows, like we do one at St. Paul Union Depot, we do the one at Duluth. Then you've got the public coming through, and you just get to see the random people that are going through the area, getting to interact with the trains, see the families, just see people that don't get to see this stuff every day. And it's really exciting to kind of see that reaction. And then there's things in the middle. Spring Creek, the big shop out in Deschler, they put on a big show every year where it's mostly model train people, but it's also the most exciting thing happening in a tiny town in Nebraska. So everybody shows up.
Plus the owners of Spring Creek are big Fremo guys. They own modules too.
I mean, that to me is the difference. It's just you're out there, you're meeting people every time that you're doing Fremo.
So we're getting lots of questions. How about if I run through the slides I have?
Sure.
And you guys can explain what it is, because people are asking about size and creativity and some
and it's probably easier to show rather than tell.
Yep.
And
this was our setup in Duluth. And if you've ever been up to that museum, this is right when you first walk in, that great big main hall. And you can kind of see the different types of modules that are out there. There's that great big yard in the middle. Just above that is a pretty significant viaduct module. It's really anything that you can think of. There's no wrong or right answer to what you want to put on a Fremo module. You're just making a scene. The standards are only going to involve with the area where they connect to each other.
Yep.
And you've got some basic restrictions on, this is the smallest turn you want to use on a main line or a branch line. I think it's 42 inches is the radius for a main line module, 36 for a branch line. Other than that, you can really do what you want. That is the real fun about Fremo, is that if you've got something that you want to make and you don't necessarily have a whole layout concept to work around, you don't have to. You can make a 6-foot scene just because you got something you want to see in your head that's executed in real life. People do that with Fremo modules all the time. If you've got a bridge you want to build, you don't have to build the whole scene around it. Just build your bridge.
And this last show we had up at Duluth was our first show that we had over 90% of the modules were fully scenic or done.
So you'll get a space, and how do you design a layout like this?
We use CAD files. AJ is our master layout designer. So is Bob Sterner out of Duluth. Usually you try to design the layout to public shows. We like to have a roundy round or a full loop. Because we got a lot of kids coming to those shows, and they like passenger trains, and it's easier to run a passenger train on a loop than a straight shot switching layout. A lot of modules, like being targets in the top left corner is a junction module, and you can have many branch lines coming off of that. So the guys that want to switch that are part of our group, there was a bunch of industries off the main line on that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for some of the questions coming through, the width is important. When you come to the end of the modules, you want to be 24 inches wide for a single track module and 26 inches wide for a double track. That is just where the modules interface with each other. So they can get wider in the middle or narrow or whatever you want to do from there. Reverse loops are done. You know, it hooks up just like any other DCC system. So when all of these are being connected underneath, it'll have a reversing district, and it can be configured that way. It doesn't have to be a whole module as a reverse loop. And sometimes you have them and sometimes you don't. You know, FreeMo is a lot more freeform than most of this stuff. So it really just depends on what kind of setup. When you come out to the modelers meet, we won't have a roundy round. We won't have reverse loops. It's just going to be a switching layout. You know, it would be very similar operations wise to like shelf layout at home. You can see that picture in Duluth. There is a round loop that's going around so that we've got trains that are constantly going for the public. The yard is in the middle, and then there's that big switching branch over to the side. And really, it can be anything you want. That is really the beauty of it, is it's all just Lego bricks. And once you put them into that CAD program, you can play with them endlessly in the space until you're happy with what you get. It's a new layout absolutely every time, even if you're building it out of the same pieces.
Yep.
Is
Track
that
height
all?
is 50 inches from the floor,
50 inches.
to answer Ken's question.
Sure.
And most floors are not very level, so you get some up and down variant from the 50 inches.
And if you head over to freemo.org, they'll have all the standards, and they'll kind of give some guidance and best practices on that. You know, all the Fremo modules have adjustable feet so that when we're setting them up, we're able to level the layout and make sure that everything is going to run properly.
Are the HO and the N scale modules built the same or very similar?
N scale has their own set of standards. It's not really the same as ours. They are they have a little bit more leniency. From what I'm not an N scaler, so I don't know.
Yeah, we may be speaking out of turn for somebody who's a little wiser on that one.
From what I've heard and gathered, their standards aren't exactly the same as HO's.
But the basic idea is going to be the same. You're not generally going to use dimensional lumber. You're going to use plywood, and you're just making a basic frame out of plywood.
Great.
You can get as creative with that as you want, but the majority of these modules are just going to be a straight through. So if you're building a 6x2 block out of plywood, it's going to end up being about the same.
Are all these modules here Minnesota, or did another group come?
This year it was just Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you had joined Minnesota FreeMo, this is what you guys could play with. If you guys who are on the chat.
Yep.
And when you go to National FreeMo, you get double and triple, as AJ was explaining Oklahoma. So we'll go on, and you guys can talk about some of the scenes that you can do here. Somebody's familiar with this one, I think. Is that?
Yep. This is one of mine. And this is kind of the fun of it. You can take a nice picture like this. It looks like it's just way out in the middle of the woods without having to have the whole rest of the woods to be able to get there. And it was fun to just kind of build that one little scene and let it exist in isolation. You know, it didn't have to be a great big thing. This is about a 3-foot module. That's my first scratch-built bridge. Very proud of it.
Nice. There's your AP for structures right there.
Oh, we'll talk about that at the modelers retreat. It'll be there.
And that's one of Bob's customized Sioux Line F units that he is very proud of.
Should be. It's beautiful.
To me, I enjoy this part of Fremo where you're going around and you get to take a picture of other people's work and your work and just kind of fun combinations that you don't get otherwise. Like, I know Bob likes seeing his stuff on other people's scenes because it's fun. It's something different than what you can do every day, and it gives you more of that sense while you're looking back at your pictures that you're trained with somewhere, which is always a nice bonus.
There was a question about our beer meetings. We have one in St. Paul at Gabe's, which is coming up. We moved it off of Valentine's Day because we didn't want to upset any of the girlfriends or wives.
Good plan. Good plan.
So we moved it to Wednesday the 15th. That's at Gabe's in St. Paul off Energy Park Drive. The other one's in Egan at Rax. Greg Smith really likes Rax. Bar and Grill there. That's just temporary location because our one that we were going to is too hard to park at and just didn't fit our group anymore. We make every second Tuesday of the month, I believe.
Okay.
Once a month. Yep.
Yeah.
And we had a question about kind of how you get to a closed loop when everybody's got different size modules. It's actually kind of a fun answer. We end up building little spacer modules that go in between to kind of make up whatever gaps are out there. You will see a lot of people when they do curve modules doing either a 30, a 45, or a 90. It's always nice when people kind of stick to those standard sizes because it does simplify quite a bit when we're making all those loops. But yeah, most of the time, it's not just going to happen to work out into a perfect arrangement where you're going to put them in a circle and bolt them up. The Minnesota FreeMo group has a collection of spacer modules that we use, and they basically just get built on demand. And it's nothing real complicated. It's just a wood surface with a couple of pieces of wood for you to be able to clamp to, and a track runs right across the top of it. You just don't take a picture right in that particular spot.
That's the filler piece.
In this photo, we have Mark. I can't pronounce his last name, but I just call him Mark G. It's 2-to-1, and you got Brian Howell running his must be a California Zephyr or Chicago Zephyr or something like that. And Brian Brian McCart is standing, looking off in the distance.
Yeah, I'm not going to anger the Burlington people by getting the name of the train wrong.
Yeah. I know. I probably really upset Tom Johnson.
It is a beautiful Burlington passenger train.
Burlington's fine. Don't anger the Great Northern guys. It's not pretty.
Yeah, that's very true.
They have their own mafia. We're not going into there. So Graham has joined us. Hello, Graham. And you can get these detailed scenes.
You can, and it's fun because you get the chance to do different things. A lot of times in your layout, you've got one locality that is going to be from one end to the other. You really don't have that restriction with FreeMo. It's not generally considered a bad thing that the modules don't match exactly when you get to the end place. The general practice is you just kind of ease off on the scenery a little bit when you get to the end to make it blend a little. But other than the fact that generally they stick the desert modules and the not desert modules in contiguous blocks, it's just kind of accepted that you're going to go from scene to scene and it's not going to match. Like, this is a great one because it's a really fun module. It's got a really cool look to it. And we can put it right next to a city if that's what the design calls for. And just in this type of model railroading, it's not really that big of a deal. Even if you're kind of serious about it, and like I know Bob is when he's taking these pictures, you're just taking that one image right there and you can capture a pretty good look of just all kinds of different things.
Now in this photo, you see all the lights. So it's DCC. Maybe you should explain what command control system you use.
Digitrax is the command control that's used for FreeMo modules. You're basically just putting together one enormous layout. For us, we've got the command stations that are in a box. There are hookups that are underneath all the modules, and this is part of the standard. So as you're going through, you'll see absolutely everything that you need to get them to connect to each other. You've got essentially the same thing that you would have at a home layout. You've got a bus that's running underneath each track. One, if you have a single track. Two, if there's a double track. You've got an AC bus that's going to be your power for everything else, your building lights, your signals, your flashers, anything that you need. There's a ground wire just to make the DCC system happy. That's relatively new, so you won't see it on all the modules.
But it is a standard.
Yep. If you were doing new construction, you would add it. Other than that, it's exactly like crawling underneath a real layout. Once you connect all of those pieces together, all those electrical connectors are standard. So by the time that we have all the FreeMo modules clipped, it's just like hooking it up to a regular layout. If your module is 4 feet or greater, you'll put the plugins for your throttles on there, the UP5s or UP7s. That's about it. Everything else, if you've worked with a DCC system before, you will be very familiar with how to work on a FreeMo layout.
The question from Derek, we have about 50-50 in the group for single and double tracks. We have a lot of 2-to-1s, 90 degree double tracks, single tracks. The module that you're looking at right now is a 16-foot 2-to-1, which is being Target, which is the one I was describing with all the branch line opportunities on it.
And it'll vary a lot from show to show. Because the way this works, if you're in a group like Minnesota FreeMo and we've got a setup that's coming up, what they'll do is put out a call for modules where that's your opportunity to throw your hat in the ring, say that you want to participate this time around. So every setup is really different. The split between the double track and single track is really just going to depend on what people feel like bringing out on any given setup. And it's a little bit more complicated where like your double track is also how you make a side. So just because you've got 50-50 double track versus single track, your actual operational scheme could be just about anything, depending on what the designer is looking for.
Good.
Now I see signals in this photo. Are you going to be adding them? We got some people.
Yes, we are going to be starting to incorporate MSS, which is modular signaling systems, to the modules. It's not a standard for FreeMo, but a lot of the guys in California and Texas have signals on their modules and really got us involved and excited about adding them to our Minnesota modules. I have a couple that have MSS on it right now, and Aaron just brought down some of the boards from the guy in Canada that makes them, and we were in the process of installing one on his module.
It's a pretty new thing. What I would say if you want to know about MSS is come talk to one of us where you can see it in person, because actually looking at it is way simpler than trying to read it and understand it. The documentation will send you in circles trying to figure out what they're talking about. It's new enough that the documentation was written for tech people. They have not gone and kind of made it a little bit more user-friendly. How it actually works is pretty straightforward. If you're familiar with real-world signaling systems, it's an automatic block system. So it's not going to be CTC. It's going to be the older version where it's all essentially mimicking a solid state set of signals. On each individual module, you would have occupancy detection where you've got the signals. There's different boards. Like I said, if you want to know, come on out. More than happy to show you how it's all hooked up. Many hours have been wasted of people trying to use their words to explain MSS when it's just not that way. You need a couple of pieces of paper and to look at it in front of you, and you're going to get it right off.
And then at the modelers retreat, we'll have a module on display under construction that will have some of the MSS hardware installed.
Absolutely.
One module will be running with MSS in the layout. Then there's a question, how is it decided which trains run during a show or setup? It's pretty much, some shows will have dispatch ops and then free run at certain times, depends on the run chief. We have run chief, DCC chief, and like freight ops or operations chief at some shows, but they'll decide through a dispatcher which one goes out and who gets the green and who doesn't. A couple modules are actually CTC set up in the country. There's one big one in Texas called Dallas Union Station, and he's using CTC, which is really cool. But up here in Minnesota, we really don't have like you can't go out of the yard type of stuff. You just kind of got to watch out. There's 5 on the layout. It's probably best you don't pull out. Wait till it dies down a little bit and then head out.
And for the most part, it's just run what you run.
Yeah.
Now, Dwight here asked about Digitrax. We set up, because I'm part of the FreeMo, set up a Wi-Fi, right? So you could run trains with your phone.
Yes.
It does depend on the show.
some buildings that we're set up in, Wi-Fi doesn't work very well. But most of the time we do have Wi-Fi where you can hook up to WeThrottle or Engine Driver for Androids. You don't have to have a throttle to be part of the group. Like myself, I bring 2 throttles, so if a guy forgets one, he can borrow one of mine.
Yeah, we can generally figure it out and get you one.
Yep.
If you're going to be operating regularly, it's nice if you end up getting a throttle, but that's honestly as much for your convenience as anything else you do. Just don't have to ask people every show. But yeah, we usually have extra equipment running around. And the setups are long enough that a lot of times there's extra throttles just because it's the rare one of us that can stay on our feet the entire time to run trains.
And I think going back to the question about which trains, that might have been tinted maybe who was allowed. And from what I've always done, I always like Donnie Berg, a great freemower out of Nebraska, is if you come help set up the modules and tear down, you've earned the right to run your trains.
Yes, that's true.
And that's the
Like
general
an
rule
unwritten
for
rule, right? Yeah.
Yep. We pretty much with a Fremo setup, as long as you're contributing, you are invited.
Right.
You know, the only thing that I could see that's going to cause an issue where you're going to maybe be asked to take a train off is if it's just an absolute nightmare. It doesn't run and it's shorting out the whole layout.
The Fremo guys that are watching will know about the circus train.
Right.
Yeah. Like you go around long enough, and there will be legends of the Sparky train that is asked to not come back. But
yes, yeah.
I mean, if with the expectation that your equipment runs on reasonably good track, then yeah, run whatever.
Yeah.
And I will say Fremo track can be a little bit rougher than what you're going to get in a home layout because it is a modular setup. At the end of every single Fremo module, part of what they do is you cut back the rail a little bit, and we use little fitter pieces. So you do have joints, and you've got a little bit where you're kind of going over the going from one module to another. Like for a perfect example, my passenger train could work just fine up at the North Metro Club using scale head couplers. It takes shelf couplers to be 100% reliable on a Fremo setup just because it needs to rock and roll a little bit more. So it's you can bring pretty much whatever you want. We'll have tools. It's not that unusual for things to be adjusted. So don't feel scared if you're not 100% sure of how it works. There's going to be people there that can help you.
Yep.
So let's go through the build here. Like, so you're easy to build and maintain modules. This is what, like a 2x4?
This is Jeff, one of our newest members, Jeff's first module. It's single track, so 24.
Yep.
24 by 4 feet. It's a single track with just a small little spur for one car. Jeff has done awesome work at it. And he's really made good headway. It doesn't look like that anymore. He's done a lot more to it. That module will be at the Modelers Retreat, his first show with us.
So what do you, let's answer this electrical connector.
Yeah, so what you're using is an Anderson connector.
I don't think they can see that.
Here, see if you can hold that up to the camera there.
Oh, there we go. I'll make you guys bigger. Hang on.
There we go. So that is an Anderson pole connector. There are different colors for all the different connections that are on the modules, just to make sure that it doesn't get cross-wired or whatever. Yeah, it's a very, very easy standard. And yeah, it is nice because the cost can be very reasonable on these things. You know, lumber is high as a kite, especially if you're having to get plywood. You can generally get a 4-foot module at least out of a sheet of plywood, so it's not as big of a commitment as building something larger. And there is just wear and tear on layout equipment when you're using it. You're going to have to make repairs. You're going to have to clean it. It can be a lot more of a manageable task to clean a few Fremo modules.
Yep.
And if you've got them, because they have those universal connections, it's really easy to have a command station at the house to be able to hook it up, power it up, run a train back and forth, make sure it's working. If you've got several Fremo modules, we do have members that have them set up at home in the meantime, and It's a layout when it's not on the road.
Yep. Ted's layout in the Apple Valley is all Fremo modules.
You know, the worst you can say is you're probably not making optimum use of whatever space you're in, but it sure wins points for flexibility.
So here we have one that's not really rectangle, parallelogram, whatever. Looks like
Yeah.
That's a 6-foot double track module with a wing. It's a prototype location down near Deschler, Nebraska. It's called Davenport is the town, and I've called the module Davenport. I couldn't model everything because the track on the very end by the garage door actually goes to a co-op, and I couldn't fit that in. But the track that you see going off to the left, they take one coil car and they have an overhead crane, and that's how they unload it. It's off the Union Pacific main line down there. Very neat location out in the middle of nowhere.
And see, this is kind of the fun of it. And this is where if you start using your imagination, this is an incredibly flexible format. Because this is not just a rectangle domino. You know, it's got the end plate so that it can hook up to the other Fremo modules, but you have absolutely free reign as far as what you're doing in between those end plates. So you can come off to the side, you can have whatever extensions you want. There are several of these modules that break up into lots and lots of pieces just because they are enormous when you put them together. You can really have a lot of fun with these things and get creative about what you're doing inside of that space.
Now, what about this end plate? That's that Baltic birch. You guys want really solid end plates.
Yeah, we use Baltic birch plywood for our end plates and sides. Mine also have the inside of the module. The cross braces are all Baltic birch too. And then we put the track. We try to always have the track on plywood, not on foam, because foam shrinks over time and causes problems and sags, and try to have a sturdy base for the module.
Yeah, because to answer like what the material for the top, that is not part of the standard, so you can kind of go with whatever your preference is. Plywood is nice if you're doing something that's relatively flat and you want a good solid surface. Foam is going to be a little bit better if you're doing some carving. And then, like John said, you're going to want to have a strip of wood that's underneath the track. But this module right here, the wood is underneath the center of it, and then everything else is going to be that foam so that you can carve it into your nice scenery. It basically just depends on what you're looking for. There's not really a wrong answer. You're looking to make the module itself strong enough and stiff enough that it's not going to warp or have dimensional issues, because if it does, that's going to basically make the module unusable when you're trying to hook it up to everything else. So as long as you're building it square, you can do anything you like in the middle of it.
The photo is of Bob Sterner's new module of Marsh. It's he decided to build a new one after many years of not having a new one, and he's really making some good headway on it. It doesn't look like this anymore. This is a pretty old picture, but he's been going to town on it, doing an awesome job. And
for the question there, it can honestly be whatever you want. As far as like, if you want to do an 8-foot, you can do an 8-foot. If you want to do 4, you can do 4. You can do absolutely anything you want in between the end plates. It can be a 7-foot long, 14-degree curve if you really want it to.
Yep.
The layout planner may hate you for doing that, but you can make it and it will work in a setup.
It is a little tougher to transport an 8-foot module unless you have a trailer.
That's it. Yeah. You know, the reason that so many of them are straight and of a relatively short size is mostly because of the vehicles we drive. Nothing to do with the Fremo standard. 8 feet is kind of a practical limit just because above that it's hard to maneuver it in and out of the spaces. But the length is completely unrestricted. There's no minimum, there's no maximum.
So here you're building one with like a plywood outside and then inside?
Yeah. So this one, this is actually from Donnie Bird, the guy out in Nebraska. What he tends to do with it is he builds a plywood frame, and the plywood will be about 2 inches below the track surface through the majority of the module, so that you're laying foam over top of it, and you're able to carve down from there. That was kind of tricky on this one because we're like, what I'm digging on right there is undercutting a highway underneath the track, and I wish I had 2.5 inches, but you know, we make it work. And it just kind of shows you can build these things any way you want. It's all about that end plate, because you can see the end plate design on this one is just like on the other one, because that's the part that's standard. Everything in between those end plates, it's completely up to the preference of the builder. And I can tell you, Minnesota FreeMo is not a huge group, and there's at least 3 completely different schools of thought on what the best way to build it is, and they'll probably never agree.
Yeah.
It's one
And
of
I
those things.
we'll say from an old guy's perspective, FreeMo's nice because you can turn it upside down to wire it.
Yes.
Okay? It's
Matter
not
of
a
fact,
hole, we got to crawl underneath. So
We'll even show you that later. We got one clamped on a pair of sawhorses on its side. This module, because right before we were getting going, we put the MSS board underneath it and wired up the detection component.
yes, yeah.
You do not have to have a beard to be in Fremo, but it is encouraged.
Yes.
It's cold in Minnesota, Heath.
That's right. That's
So
right.
explain the joining system here.
This is PC ties. This is so you don't get a zippered rail. Some guys prefer this method.
Yeah, so this is actually an interior joint on a module because it's slightly different. When you're hooking one module to another, you cut back the rail about 1.5 inches. 1 inch?
1 inch, yeah.
1 inch. Sorry, kind of new. Cut back the rail 1 inch, and we use a little fitter rail. So what you're going to do is have a rail joiner on the end of each module, and we have a separate piece of rail that sits right on top of those ties, and that's what's actually connecting the two. Which is where, sometimes you get a little bit of bumping just because that's a pretty complicated way to get from one module to another. That's why, like in this picture, this is an interior joint. So let's say you wanted to build an 8-foot scene, but you don't want to have to have an 8-foot long transport vehicle. If it broke into 2 pieces, instead of having to use those fitter rails, this one has PC ties so that you can lay all the way across. Basically, you would do this with the modules connected, lay the track across it, have your PC ties under there, solder it, and then cut it so that it's a butt joint when it goes back together. Much easier to set up. You just have to be very, very careful when you're putting them together and taking them apart so that you don't zipper up the rail. And that 1 inch cutback is for HO. I will be honest, I am not familiar with how far you cut back on in. I suspect it's probably a little bit less because 2 inches is a substantial distance in scale.
This is a photo of trees I'm using for a Fremo module. I order off eBay the cheap Chinese trees that come in a big plastic bag. Takes a long time to get here, but they're you can really do a lot to them. I've added static grass to them and fine ground foam to spruce them up a little bit. They look pretty toy-like when you get them, but you can make a nice tree for pretty cheap.
But you guys do get together for group builds in someone's shop or something like
Yep.
that. It's very social.
Yep.
It's
Very
a
much
social
so.
non-club.
Yeah, usually everybody meets at my house because I have a heated garage and a big space. And bring a module over or we're working on something and you want to learn about something that we're doing. Guys come over and do it when, learn how to cut foam or wire a module or play track. I mean, we do all sorts of things.
Yeah.
It's a good way to learn.
You can learn scenery,
Yep.
track lane, wiring, road bed, prototype information, so
You have all the elements of a full layout. It's just a small enough amount that you're going to get done in a reasonable amount of time. You could do the scenery on a module in a weekend if you really wanted to, and you had everything on hand. It's a great way to learn and then move on to the next thing. So if you're one of the ADD modelers like me, where you like to get a lot of stuff done, but not necessarily the same thing for too long, Fremo is great because you can bounce from scenery to wiring to whatever, just because you're working on these little bitty bits.
it is good for ADHD because
Oh, yeah.
you only got to build a 4-foot layout. Sounds like somebody I know who lives in New York City. Anyway, so
They've
here's
got a
poll.
Fremo group out there.
Yeah, that's we have to find Heath a Fremo group. I'm going to get to his question about Amherst at the end. I'm saving that.
Yep.
So you guys actually have a barge rail marine scene, right?
Yeah, we have two of them. The end, and then this one's of mine, riverfront. I saw a picture of one of our Fremo members on a research vessel on Lake Superior, Robert Sterner, and I'm like, oh, this is perfect. I'm going to name the boat after him. And I got a picture last Duluth setup with Bob standing next to it. And yeah, I did post it on the our Facebook group, but.
And we had a question about elevation changes. Elevation changes are probably one of the things that are a little bit more challenging with Fremo, because part of the standard is that every end plate needs to be at 50 inches. So if you're going to have an elevation change, it basically needs to be contained within your module. There are some really spectacular ones out there. I know Donnie has an absolutely enormous over-under. The way that you can get away with that is it starts at one Fremo end plate. One track is going up, one track is going down, and it is just far enough that even within the Fremo standards of how much grade is allowed, it's still able to get one train above the other and then come back to that 50 inches by the time that it gets to the other end. I mean, to do that, you're easily building 20 feet worth of module.
Yep. It's big.
So, you know, you got to have a good, solid plan for how you're going to transport it. But yeah, it is one of the things that Fremo, I think, is a little bit weaker on, is you don't really get that rolling scenery because of the modular nature of it. It doesn't really encourage that. Like I said, it can be done. You should just plan on doing a relatively large scene that will always be used as one piece.
This is of a 45-degree module, single track. One of our most famous modelers, AJ Murphy. He calls this module City Curve. It's pretty neat. There's a lot of detail, a lot of cool things on it. And he actually just redid it so it looks even better than this photo.
Mm-hmm. And you can really drill down a lot more and get into that fine detail. So if you enjoy that kind of thing, it's nice because most of the time you're working on 6, 8, 12 square feet. It's a very reasonable amount of space to kind of put that extra effort and put that extra thought and really tell your story with the scene, because you've got a limited and finite goal where you actually have the expectation of seeing the end of it, and to have the whole thing be of really spectacular detail.
Cool.
I think that's true. That's true.
Yeah, it's intimidating to say you want to super detail a basement-sized layout.
Yeah.
8 square feet, pretty easy.
So there's shows all over.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if you want to travel, there are shows countrywide, and you can meet people from every part of the country. They even do pretty large setups in Canada. So, you know, if you got a gas card, a passport, and a decent-sized trailer, you can make some friends.
Well, in Canada, they use ice rinks.
Yep.
That was their last one. They had an ice rink.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. You'll see a real range of just venues and types of shows, especially if you're willing to travel a little bit.
Are you guys going to Dallas for the national convention or no?
It doesn't sound like there's going to be enough space or available for the Fremo layout. There's a guy working on it right now, and he's in the preliminary stages of discussion with the NTS who's ever putting it on.
Now that surprised me, because all they do is brag about how big things are in Dallas. So do I see a Minnesota commercial engine on the front of that train?
Yeah, that looks like, yep.
It happens from time to time.
Probably a Dan Linford's unit.
Mm-hmm.
See, you guys have your own swag too, don't you? I think
We do.
Yep. We have our shirts and other apparel that members can order. And
yeah, I think I'm actually in right now.
I forgot to put mine on. I'm still in my work uniform.
yeah. So he asked, well, how do you transport it if you don't have a car or vehicle that can haul your module?
It's pretty tough. You'd have to kind of figure out who was going to bring it for you. generally you want to build to the size that you can move around. So if that's going to be something that's a little bit smaller, where it's more reasonable to be able to carry it or bring it on transport, you can get pretty creative about building a shell or keeping it lightweight to the point where it's going to be easier to move in different types of transportation. Like a 3-foot module is not going to be outrageously larger than a suitcase as long as you don't put like a real tall grain elevator on it. So it's the kind of thing that you wouldn't have as much trouble bringing with you in an Uber, for example.
Well, I can add a couple things to that. There's a couple members of different groups that have a 1-foot module which just has signals on it. One of our members is making a road crossing with grade crossing lights on it. And those are pretty easily transported, 1 foot. You can put it on your lap if you're riding the subway or riding the bus.
Like for us, I don't think we have too many members that have brought them on transit. But if you're doing this somewhere like New York, where it's real easy to be able to get from transit to where the setup is, I am absolutely positive that you could build a Fremo module that you could roll on and roll off of a New York City subway.
I have a trailer, so a couple of the Fremo members have their modules in my trailer. Tom is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Dan Linford's is another. And I don't mind taking them. It just makes our setup bigger.
And it is a social thing. So as you get to know the people, that's part of what the group is about, is just making sure that things like that are able to be handled. This module that I'm working on, I drive a sedan. As soon as I put scenery on the top of that thing, it is not going to fit in that vehicle anymore. And I'm going to have to get by with a little help from my friends.
So I'm looking at this track plan here. That's looks like a 4-way diamond there. That's pretty.
That module is Decatur. It was recently retired from service. It had 16 diamonds on it. It was a very unique module, prototype location, Decatur, Illinois. David Clem built it. I never got the chance to run on it.
The back of the photo.
You get some pretty wild and wacky layout setups, because some of these people that are building the Fremo modules, they're building pretty complicated junctions. Being Target is like that. It's got a lot of ways into it and a lot of ways out of it. So you get these really cool pieces that people end up making just because you can have a little bit more fun with it. Like Being Target would be absolutely enormous if you were trying to capture that piece of Illinois and build a layout around it. But it's actually pretty reasonable if you just want to cut out the really fun part and model that.
I think I saw somebody maybe it was N scale, but they did the Dallas Union Station.
That's HO scale.
That's
HO. It was just gorgeous.
It is enormous.
Yep.
Yeah, it's enormous.
And when you get to be that big, you kind of really limit yourself on which shows you could bring that to.
And I don't know that there's an S scale standard, although honestly, all it would take is somebody making one up and people starting to build modules. So maybe this could be the first place for it.
Right, Ken? You can build an S-scale module. I'm sure Shane will be all about that.
Yeah, there are S-scale standards. You are right. There are S-scale standards.
Yeah, somebody must have written down some dimensions.
So now, here I showed that you design places just for club members to walk, and then also for the public on the outside. So
yep. And having the kind of operator space like that is more of a priority if it's something like these depot shows where you really do have the public out there. You kind of do need a space that's a little bit away from them, just so that you can have a moment. We often have snacks, as you can see here. That is a very important part of Fremo, is snacks.
Just don't bring the M&Ms. Shane's always got his hand in that M&M container. To answer that one question, it is prototype location of Bloomington, Illinois.
Yeah, that's a pretty big area to model. Yeah, it really is a great thing about Fremo that if there is a particular prototype scene out there that interests you, you can model that scene regardless of your desire to model the entire area or your space to be able to commit to a bigger layout.
But if you were starting out in the group, I would suggest doing a smaller 4-foot module for your first module. It's a lot easier to build and learn on, and rather than taking an undertaking of like a 12-foot module section or even bigger.
So you shouldn't. You're saying you shouldn't build a 16-foot curved siding like I did my first try. That was just.
You know, it's like everything else in this hobby. You're going to build it the best you know how, and 2 years later, you're going to slap your forehead and go, what was I thinking? So
Yeah.
you just need to decide how big a commitment you want to that future headache. I can tell you right now, my first Fremo module, I would do a million things different about it. So I'm glad that it's relatively small.
It's the ultimate chainsaw layout, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you don't know what you don't know. So we tend to recommend starting small just because make your mistakes on something that if you really had to step away from it, you could, or it's at least small enough that you can correct it.
So, yeah, but I think this is important. I think going back to the question about whose trains will run at a show for 2 days, you'll get time to run.
Yes.
That's it.
I know in
That's
the beginning everyone's excited to get their trains around, but by 2 o'clock on Sunday, you'll have all the time to run laps with your Zephyr that you want. You know, it's just,
You're going to have hours and hours. The layouts tend to be fairly large. There's some amount of back and forth as far as yard space or on the rail storage. If you brought out a gigantic train, maybe we're going to want to cycle those out, but that's all normal stuff. For the most part, you're going to be able to run just about whatever. And you've got these great big giant setups. And the good thing about them being flat is if you want to bring out your 200 car earthworm and run it around, great.
Yep.
Like, I hope it runs right if you're going to do that. You will not be popular with the crew if you're 200 car train derails, but it's definitely doable.
but it's very social because I've seen people ask, "Hey, can I bring your freight train around with my engines?" You know, I've had people,
sure.
can I drag? They'll have Great Northern or something. Can I drag your ore cars around? I'm like, have at it.
I mean, that's kind of the fun of the setup. Just by its very nature, it's all kind of put up for a couple of days and taken down. So it's a lot more freeform than it tends to be like at a club. I do both, and the experience is very, very, very different. Fremo, there is a lot more back and forth like that. If you want to run somebody else's train, you can just ask them. You'll probably have better luck with that at an average Fremo show than an average club. It's just a lot of fun. You're going to have time. You're going to get to see a lot of fun stuff. And you'll get to see some things that are different from your usual experience.
To add on to that, some of our shows are 24-hour access. So there's some guys that stay till like 3 in the morning running trains. Otherwise, you know, guys show up at 6 a.m. and there's only a couple guys running on the layout, and they pretty much got free reign of the layout.
So Heath asked who owns the most modules. No, I think we know which person does, but how many modules would you say are in Minnesota FreeMo HO?
I don't know. We just did a count here recently, and I forgot. For Minnesota, I think I own the most feet per module. AJ is coming in a close second.
We're pretty sure that either John or AJ could set up a whole layout if they so desire.
Yeah, we could have our own personal Fremo layout.
So looking at this, Ken asked, so there's metal legs here in the bottom right, wooden legs. Is there a standard?
No, some guys use even PVC pipes for legs.
The height is set. The fact that you need an adjuster is set. Other than that, you can use whatever materials you're comfortable with.
As long as you have adjusters on the bottom.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I also want to add that Fremo is not really a club. You know, we don't pay any dues or anything like that. We're just a group of guys or gals.
And gals, yeah.
What? No officers?
No officers. We get donations through our donation box at shows. I actually hold on to the money, and if we need to buy something for the group, you know, I just go and buy it. Like we just bought clamps here recently. We're updating our Fremo banner sign, and stuff like that.
It's
So
pretty simple.
This was Bob's. Now he used the Fremo module on his home layout, which is a great idea.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And there's no reason not to with a scene like this, because then you can take it out, you can share it. That's a beautiful building that he has built on there. And it kind of shows you how you're able to do these larger scenes as long as you're able to move it around. And a lot of these guys have trailers or using trucks. I can't remember exactly how long this module is, but the whole thing is pretty extensive. It's great. Like, it's an amazing scene.
This is a picture of a prototype location in St. Paul of 7th Street. Bob had to do a mirror, so it's actually backwards. Two of the buildings that are not in the photo are actually still there off of Lafayette. It's a really cool module. Bob's done a wonderful job on the buildings, and it's very accurate.
It's beautiful.
It is.
This is of newly refurbished Canal Street. AJ decided he didn't want it anymore, and he knew I really liked the module, so he sold it to me. The Basque Bridge is operating. Me and Aaron are going to be adding a loc sound decoder for the bell and the foghorn sounds when the bridge goes up.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's always been a fun module because it's animation.
Yep.
That Basque Bridge works. It had signal systems, and I know we used to give that job to some guy who just wanted to take a break and sit there, and he'd push the button and raise the load. I think that was a lot of fun. So Heath is like, yeah, you want to make your Fremo modules if you can incorporate them at home instead of hanging them on the side of the garage. You know, I wanted to do that with part of the Split Rock, but I never got around to that. No, Greg Dahl has his 2 Fremo modules are permanently part of his layout now. So,
I mean, sometimes it happens. It just by the time you get sick of ripping it out, it just gets attached. I mean, basically, to have it integrated into a layout, all you really need to do is to have your benchwork come to a Fremo end plate. That's it. As long as you've got that mating surface there, you can hook anything you want to it. So if it's always in the same setup at your house, that's great. Until you screw them all together, it's still a Fremo setup.
Yeah.
This photo is of prototype location Minneapolis, Valspar. Bob actually painted the building to match the prototype. I can't remember if he said he got it off Blueprints or something, but it's now owned by AJ Murphy. It's a really neat module, really fun to switch on. This one's going to be at the model retreat too.
Yeah, that Valspar paint building was so colorful. I think we got more pictures of it. My old stack train. So yeah, there it is. And there's a young Bob.
Yeah, there's a very unrecognizable Bob right there.
But yeah, if you lived in Minneapolis for the last 20 whatever years, you drove by on the freeway and you'd see that building. It was just, and it wasn't graffiti. That was a paint factory. Yeah.
I think this was one of the first setups they ever did.
Yeah, was that the U?
I think so. I think this is at the U of M.
I think like Gopher Rail, I remember that was so much fun.
Yep.
That I think we learned a lot there. We learned an awful lot there and stuff. So, but that was some of the first like point to point things that we did there.
And this is kind of what they mean by the 2-to-1, is where you've got a single track end plate on one side of the module and a double track end plate on the other side. We use that for transitioning back and forth between just whole double track sections and single track, or we use 2 of them to make a smaller siding. Just kind of depends on what the needs of the layout are.
This is a good question for you.
Yeah, that's a good one. Is Fremo addictive? I would say the same amount as all other model trains, so yes.
I think it's more than.
Well, it just, you're able to finish it. It's a really rare thing with a layout that you actually get to a point that you can step back and say, all right, I'm happy with this. I don't think it needs any more. With a module, you can actually get there. You may come back a few years later after some new stuff is on the market or you learn some new things, but it is reasonable to say that you are going to get to a point where you feel like the job is done. And the natural impulse as soon as that happens is to start building another one.
As Aaron did.
Yeah.
After he finished his first one, he's like, I'm just going to build one. And then he, a frame was available for a module.
It was fine until somebody offered to sell me a frame really, really, really cheap so that I would spend a bunch of money finishing it as a Fremo module. It's like when somebody gives you a free car, say no. There's a reason they're giving it to you.
This is one of our most famous modules. It's Kimball's Viaduct, prototype location on the Bessemer and Lake Erie.
And in case you were wondering kind of how you do a bridge with the Fremo end plates, this is a really good example. That frame in between those end plates is whatever you want to make. So if you want to have it dip down in the middle so that you can have a really cool scene like that, that's how you build it.
Yeah, isn't that like 2 modules?
I think it's 2 5-foot or 6-footers.
Yeah,
Very impressive in person.
That's won so many awards and it's on so many videos.
And for transportation for a module like that, Mark has wood cases he puts over the top of them for transportation to keep everything safe during travel. You can see them underneath the module there.
And some of the Fremo people may be at the Madison show. I know we're not going to have a setup there. But what is our website? Probably hop on IO.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's we can ask with the members and see if anybody's going to be out there. The shows, it's kind of hit and miss when they have space for Fremo. A lot of times the organizers are trying to make money, so they don't necessarily want to give 1,000 square feet to something that doesn't pay. It just depends. Your mileage may vary. The show that we set up at the most often is Sioux Falls, and even that has been kind of hit and miss in the past couple of years as the organizer has been indecisive over whether Fremo needs to be a part of the show.
Indecisive.
It happens. I mean, there's more than enough opportunities through the year to be able to go out and do a setup. And a lot of them are very, very consistent. Like the Spud show is every year, Duluth is every year.
Deschler is every year.
Yep. Yeah.
So how big a space do you get at Deschler?
I think it's a like community center with three separate buildings that are all connected. So we'll run through the 3 buildings. N-Skill's not going this year for some reason, but they're having HON3 Fremo modules come instead. I think it's probably roughly, if I had to guess, probably 60 by 150 worth of space.
That sounds right. Because I had somewhere in the neighborhood of 8,000 square feet in my head, and that's about it. It's a big space. And I think that Oklahoma show was even bigger. And the Canadians do enormous setups because they do the ice rink thing.
Oh, sure. I suppose at the Calgary Super Train or something. Or
Yep. A lot of times, if you want to go to a real big setup, you're going to wind up doing some traveling. But those shows are semi-regular around the country, and they're kind of fascinating because that's where you're going to see the stuff like the Dallas Union Terminal. That is some of the stuff you just got to see to believe, you know.
That's pretty good. So everyone can participate. This is the kids.
Yep.
It's Donnie Berg's daughter, Emma. She likes to come and run Chicago, Burlington, Quincy stuff. Tom Johnson actually got her really hooked on the CB&Q, so he's to blame.
Dave Hamilton approves, so.
I would expect he would approve.
But yeah, Donnie, I wish I had some of the pictures of the steam engines I weathered up for Donnie because I like it because he's one of the guys who doesn't want clean steam engines. So
Mm-hmm.
I went at it for them. Our buddy
the
down in Illinois sent. See if I can get a photo here of one of the setups. I'll see what it'll show up as. And he said this was Oklahoma.
Yep.
You know, it's kind of tough to see with the black and white, but AJ sent this. That's how big. You can see, what, 3 return loops?
Yep.
And
I think the way they did this one, this is a private setup, so everybody's kind of chipping in on the space. It's why they have it in Elk City, Oklahoma, is that getting that much space is a very reasonable thing. I have not done as many of those, but it, like AJ said, it is definitely becoming more popular. Fremo comes in all shapes and sizes. It can really be whatever you want it to be. There's going to be the private setups like this. There's the things like at St. Paul Union Depot that are the complete opposite, and everything in between. And, you know, there's no obligation to go to a show. You build a module, and if what they're doing that week is something that interests you, you offer up your module when they call. If it doesn't, don't go.
Yeah. And if you say you're going, go.
Yeah.
Ken, did you have anything?
Well, I was just going to say that's really neat. I recall when Ken Borowski was on the show, he showed us that huge setup that was out in Wyoming. And I think that again is what goes right back to what Aaron was saying. This is a great opportunity to get in and try your hands in the hobby. You do it small and grow big. You can get addicted and go bigger. You can travel if you like. I just think this is really a lot of fun. So that's why I'm glad we're talking about it.
Yeah, it is family friendly, like we said. Bring the, you know, you're gonna travel, bring the family. There's a lot to do in these cities.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And,
Well, and you get to see a lot of people's work and meet a lot of modelers. That's something that's really unique about this. Is if you go out to Oklahoma, there's dozens of modules from dozens of different people. So if you see something that you like and you want to know how they did it, you can just go ask them. You're going to have a lot of people that are there with their finished product so that you can learn an awful lot at those shows.
Great.
so what do you think an average cost to get into Fremo would be? Not counting the trades, but if you're going to go buy the wood and the electrical and the connectors, what's a reasonable amount?
A lot of it is going to depend on what exactly you're trying to do. You know, a good rule of thumb for the top side is you are probably going to be into it for about $100 a square foot if you're doing a model railroad. You know, that applies at home, that applies on a Fremo module. Underneath can be, there's pretty big variance just depending on what quality of wood you want to get. You know, lumber is incredibly unpredictable these days, and the higher quality you want, it gets very expensive very quickly. But you could probably be in and out of the bottom for what, $100?
Give or take. A couple of us, you know, have gone in together on a sheet of plywood to spread the cost around. Baltic birch is pretty expensive right now. Most plywood is, but yeah, we just all go together and buy stuff. Electronics we just bought. Me and Aaron and a couple other guys went together to save on shipping,
and some of it just depends on what you're trying to do. You know, for my little curve module that has a woodland scene, the bridge is scratch built, so it costs virtually nothing because it's just a pile of sticks. The trees ended up costing all over the place, but it adds up much faster than you think. You know, that kind of $100 a square foot, that's assuming that you're doing something where you're having to buy a lot of commercial products to put it together and finish a scene. That is absolutely not required for Fremo. You know, if you want to be more creative, if you want to work and kind of build some of this stuff, to use alternate materials, that is everything that this hobby is about. You could scratch build a lot of this stuff and get your costs down dramatically.
You guys want to show us? You guys want to show us some layouts while we talk about this?
Sure.
So I'm going to hold the camera.
I'll just remove them here. So they're going to show us some modules they've got going, and we can go through some of the questions that they had here. Here we go.
Can you guys see it fine?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So this is the
It doesn't
vascular
freeze
bridge
up too
module.
much.
Let's see if I can figure this one out. Just these two?
Yep, just touch those two. Other way.
Here you go, Heath. Here's your Hell's Gate. Oh, look at this. It's the Chicago River.
It's binding. Well, it's stuck right now. I'm still working the bugs out of it.
It knows the camera's on.
Yeah.
Live audience.
Tom's favorite thing right there.
Taco sauce.
Well, and the Tom's point of not having to crawl underneath the layout to wire is absolutely correct. But at 6 feet, you just pop it up on its side. This is the MSS stuff that we've been working with. You know, this is your current detection going through. Most of it is not there. This is just kind of the basics. Like I said, it looks much more complicated than it is. The whole operating principle is pretty simple. It's just current detection. And you can just kind of play with different ideas and different ways that you want to lay things out. Like the reason this one has so many wires, the pink and the green are the two different districts for detection. Because since the signal is going to be in the middle, half of it is going to be detected over here, half of it is going to be detected over here. This is the AC power right there. And then this is DC power. Fun fact that we learned, when you're using the Woodland Scenics Just Plug lights, you can feed them 12-volt DC with just a little current limiting resistor. So this is where all the Woodland Scenics lights get hooked up, is just straight to that one, and don't really have to worry too much about them. Yeah, this is the module that you saw with no top.
Yep, this is the one with no top, Davenport, Nebraska. It's got track on it now, phone's installed. It's all wired. I just got to do feeder wires.
And you can kind of get an overall idea of the shape of it this way, where the wing comes out to the side. And you can see this wing is not FreeMo compliant. You don't have to have it just the 2 feet wide when it's your own thing here. This could be any shape. It could be 20 feet long if you wanted it to be. As long as it's got a FreeMo end to connect with there and a FreeMo end to connect with here, you can do anything else you like. Yeah. And we're kind of using it as a little bit of storage, which tends to happen with the best of layouts.
Yeah. This is a new one to the group. It's Riverfront Yard. It's under construction. It'll mate up with the other pier, Riverfront.
Looks like the pier on Heath's layout there he's making there. That's kind of cool.
I have another neat module done by AJ Murphy. It's a different kind of 2-to-1.
It's good for showing kind of the practicalities of the Fremo thing. This is a city module. There are large buildings that go on here. So they get removed for transit just so that this block is a little bit more reasonable to deal with. You know, when it's set up, the whole thing comes up to about here. You just kind of get creative.
Do a over top shot of it.
It's been here for some scenery touch-ups and getting all these street lights working.
I think this module is about 10 years old, and it was time to update a few things on it. And AJ's been adding lights to all the buildings, so we can turn the lights off at shows and do some night train operations.
They want to know where you park your cars.
Well, one of them's right there, and then her car parks in here. I have to clean up before she gets home, and I park my truck outside.
Yeah. That's what we get to do after we're done.
After this, all right. You guys were not at Amherst, right?
No, we weren't.
No.
I think there was a different Fremo group there. I'm not sure.
All right.
Yep, this is the new one that I'm working on. So we've been trying to figure out our little bridge scene right here. Managed to get enough clearance underneath there for a highway truck to go through.
Is that a 6-foot module?
Yes.
This is.
Okay.
And 6 feet's a nice size. Yeah, it's enough to let you do a pretty substantial scene, but it's not so much that it's crazy to store and transport. And it doesn't have to be real complicated. I would say if you're thinking about doing a Fremo module, just think of what you want to build as a modeler. Yeah, my first one, I wanted to get a good idea of how to do scenery. And what I really wanted to know is just how difficult is it to make something look like the Northwoods up in the northern half of Wisconsin and Minnesota. Turns out pretty hard. I don't think I'd want to do it on a whole layout. You know, for this one, I wanted to build some buildings, so it's nice and long so that I've got space for lots of them, and we'll kind of go from there. We'll see what I want to learn to do next.
Aaron's also going for some of his certificates on some of the buildings on this module.
Yeah, we will definitely have a few going up for AP evaluation by the time it's all said and done.
Yeah, this is the one thing too for scenery. The scenery certificate doesn't have to all be on one layout.
You know, the only trick with scenery in Fremo is if you are looking at the points, some of them are dependent on a backdrop. So you do kind of need to figure out what your game plan is there. You either need to have a clip-on backdrop that's going to be able to get you some points, or you just need to have a good plan to get to 87 without those points.
All right. I think we want to hear the circus train story, and then we'll let you guys go. Thanks.
Well,
unless you got anything else, Ken?
I don't know if you guys have ever been at a layout where a large brass train is running, but it is often an experience, and the circus train was no different. Very sparky. I wasn't there, so that's all I could tell you, but I know that everybody speaks of it in hushed tones.
Was that the car? Wasn't that after then we all had to build a circus train car for a guy?
I think so. I think so. Yeah, like you'll have to find somebody who's been around it a little bit longer to get that story, but from what I gather, it is quite a story.
So he brings up a point. The buildings and everything is removable. Do you use magnets, or do you just have posts or something to set them on?
Kind of depends on what the owner decides. For this one, they just set on there. For mine, I'm probably going to have them mostly glued down just because they're going to have interiors and I don't want to have to handle them. It's all different solutions. It basically comes down to how crafty you are. If you put alignment dowels in there, that's probably a great idea if that's something that you're capable of. But it's whatever you like to do. That's the great thing about it. The only standards are just how it connects to everything else. Everything in the middle of that module is however you want to do it.
For most of my modules, probably about 90% of them are glued down to the module. I found that actually mounting them permanently has reduced damage to a lot of the buildings during transport or repacking and unpacking. All my modules ride on rolling carts, so they're sitting flat. There's a gap in between, so I can have trees, bushes, and decently sized buildings or antennas or anything like that. And I just kind of flip them on their side when I'm setting up and put the legs in and put it on, stand it up straight, and I'm ready to go.
And something you do want to consider when you're building a Fremo module and you're putting it together, these do get exposed to the elements in a way that your home layout really won't.
Yep.
When you're taking it to a show, sometimes it's in the summer, and when you go eat lunch in the middle of the day while you're driving, it's going to get to 120 degrees in your car. When you're going to a winter setup, it's going to get hard frozen inside of the car. So you need to be prepared that everything on there is going to have to deal with that. You might also need to turn it on its side from time to time. You're probably going to wind up using an awful lot more glue than you think.
Many bottles of scenery glue.
Yeah, because by the time you're done, you should be able to take your Fremo layout, plunk it on its side, whack the back of it real hard with your hand a few times, and not have all the trees and grass end up on the floor. Otherwise, it's probably going to have a bad time bouncing around in your car driving to Duluth. So yeah, it's some of the things are a little bit different about it, and that again, where we recommend starting small, so that if there's something that has to be corrected down the line, it's going to be a more accomplished or easily accomplished task. But it's fun. You learn a lot of good things. You learn a lot of good techniques. And all the bulletproofing that you're doing to a Fremo layout would certainly be appropriate to do to a home layout. It just means you don't have to be as nervous when your operators are working around. Like I tell you, you can take my grass on my little woodland module and you can rap on it and knock on it like it's a door. And it really doesn't matter. You're not going to hurt it.
That's great stuff. Well, this has sure been a lot of fun, Tom. I'm glad we did this.
This is a good crew.
Yeah.
I'm
But
looking
if you
forward
want
to
to
the
learn
modular
more,
retreat.
yeah, exactly. Come out to the Modelers Retreat. We'll have a setup layout. There'll be a bunch of us there so you can ask questions. You can see how this stuff works in practice. A lot of this is easier just to look at it than to try and explain it as far as the standards. Once you take a look, you'll get it right off the bat.
Tom, can you add like our IO group link to this video at all?
I can if you give it to me there. I will.
I'll have
Trying to find
yeah, I
something.
can send it to you.
All righty.
So if anybody has any questions, we have an IO group, Facebook group. Just reach out, join, ask any questions you want. You know, there's a bunch of us on there that'll answer any questions you have.
Or come to a meeting.
Yeah,
Our
come to a
meetings
meeting.
include beer.
Yeah.
What's your Facebook
Yes.
group?
It helps with the modeling, I hear. So
It sure does. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of this is social. If you want to see if it's something that you're into, you can just come on down. We meet at a restaurant. We'll have dinner. We'll drink a few beers. See if it's something that you like.
So Minnesota FreeMo, that's your group?
Yep.
.org.
And the Facebook group is Minnesota FreeMo.
Yep. And that's the title of the IO group also. So we'll have a link that we can put either on the video or we'll make a post on the Facebook page.
Or we have the website too. You can reach out there also.
Okay. That's great.
Or attend your great NMRA functions that are coming up in the next few months.
That's the key. I appreciate the plug because that's what we're trying to do is build community, and you guys are a big part of our community.
yeah,
So
thank
good
you.
stuff.
Thank you, guys.
Yep, no problem. Thanks for having us.
All right, we'll let you go clean up before the wife gets home. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
And Heath put up a link. Thank you, Heath. We're going to show you a new thing we have going here, which is our swag store. Right, Ken?
Exactly right.
And I'll post the link in there and you can chat about this.
You know, part of the pride of being in any group is showing yourself off, and we've used this really good-looking Twin City Division NMRA logo that was designed by Gary Leone a bunch of years ago, cleaned up and tidied up a little bit by Will Sampson, and we put it on some really nice wearables. And other items. And so, it also includes the podcast. So you can have, like, for instance, the modelers meet. I intend to one day show up in the TCD and one day show up in the podcast, just to prove to people that I have more than one change of clothes. You'll see that it not only do we have really neat, stylish wearables, but it comes with great accessories. My favorite one is there's an 8-ounce insulated tumbler, which I figure is a perfect shot glass size for S-scale model railroaders. And of course, tie-dyed. You got to have the Kansas hippie design. Wait a minute, what makes you think I'm old enough to be a hippie? Never mind. Never mind. We won't go into that.
We won't go there. But
And,
Spread Shop makes some nice stuff, and it was recommended to us by Heath. We want to thank you for that, for some higher quality than Teespring. This is high quality stuff. You choose the colors, you choose the sizes. If you order now, I think there's 10, 11 days left of 15% off everything.
exactly.
And stickers. We'll be getting free stickers soon. If you want some of this crazy guys layout stickers, I'll send them out. But the stickers are coming. But you can order stickers from this place as well. Yes, it's Blame Heath for this. So, but there's baby clothes, many items for the ladies, hoodies, stuff for your dog. Ken, I know Ken's getting stuff for his dog.
Oh yeah, Teddy needs a nice doggy scarf.
Yep, and like you said, the tumblers and shot glasses for a nice glass of Ensign Morgan. Get the crossing gate on there. Get some baseball caps. You want to start your own slow pitch softball league there? Well, we can sponsor that. But you can get either with the Twin Cities logo or with the crossing gate. And then you've got an apron for operations so you don't lose the 120 car cards, your pen, your track warrant book, your Form 19s, and your rule book, SSI, general orders, superintendent bulletins, and everything else that you need to operate on, like Ken's layout. So
right. Yeah, because you're right. When you're operating that little N scale stuff, you got to be able to put all your things in pouches so you got your hands free.
That's right. So it makes it handier to take home trains too. But
that's right.
Remember our rule: if you steal a car from a layout, you got to steal a car card so they don't know it's gone. So,
that's right.
I don't know if it'll work with Evan Williams engine. I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's just only for Ensign Morgan. So
I don't know what Evan Morgan is or Evan Williams, but I'm always game to try something new. Sneak a little bit of that to the modelers meet, and we'll try it out.
We'll try that out. So yeah, we've been going almost 2 hours here. Ken, we got anything else to say, or want to say thank you? Or
I want to say thanks for John and Aaron coming on. That was great. And if you look back on the last few weeks, some of the things we've done, we had Ken Borowski and the N Scalers on. We've tried to bring on people so you can see across the division the things that we're doing. This is an incredibly active division, and we're really happy about that. We certainly have room for a lot of other people. I believe as the header says, this is a winter thing, and we're probably going to take off the summer because at least the 2 weeks of summer that we have here in Minnesota, so that we can get outside. I ordered in and received a new lapel microphone that's the same one that Heath was using at Amherst. So we're going to be able to go out and do some layout videos, and we're going to do those in advance so we can edit them, and so that you get a good quality video that we can talk over rather than trying to do it live where you see us stumbling over each other and we can't find the microphone, because we'd love to give you good contact. So there you go.
Yeah, we have some amazing layouts that have never been seen on video before.
Yes.
John Hotvet's Colorado layout, Ed Petrie's Sierra, phenomenal layouts here in the Twin Cities. I'm going to go videotape this month. So lots of stuff coming. Our division is going gangbusters. If you want to sign up and do something, we will find a fun spot for you.
Absolutely. And if we can't find one, we'll let you create it.
Yes. So we will let you create it, because if you come to us with an idea that you think we should do, you're instantly the chairman of that idea. So
that's right.
Be careful what you ask for. You might be running it.
Right. So I got a message from Brett on my interchange, the NMRA interchange, and part of that reminds me is that the NMRA has the interchange program, which is really a neat way to communicate. I'm going to be real upfront and tell you that all this social media is overwhelming me, and we are looking for folks that can kind of become our social media gurus and help us. So one of the things he talks about is LCC, and we are going to work with a couple guys here that are LCC knowledgeable, and we'll try to have a Friday night thing like this on LCC, and we'd love to have something on LCC at the convention. Brett, do I remember you're going to do something at the convention on LCC? But anyway, that detail's not important. What is important is as we get into new things, we want to introduce them here to the community, and we need other people to do that, because I just barely got past the point where I'm pulling my trains along with strings. So there you go.
I think we'll wrap it up there, Ken, before everybody departs. Thank you. If you could hit the like button, hit it. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe.
Please do.
If you want some swag, the link is in the comments. So please click that link and go buy something. You'll get 15% off now for the next 12, 13 days, I think so. We just set up the shop.
Yep. Hey, come see us at the modelers meet, and if you wear your division outfit, if we get enough people wearing division swag, we'll take a great big picture and post it and make everybody in the whole NMRA jealous of us.
Yeah,
although
jealous.
We have to admit they are anyway, because over the last few months we've been selected to try to help the NMRA test out some things like the Discord server. So the things that the division is doing does not go unnoticed by the powers that be.
Yeah. We make good guinea pigs, I think.
We do.
I don't know. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend. Tell us what you want to see on here for the next couple of Fridays before we bid adieu. For my co-host Ken, I'm Tom.
Yes,
Ken, we didn't put our names up. I don't know if on here, but we thank John, we thank Aaron, we thank everyone in chat, and you guys have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you later.
See you later, guys.